Green Bay and Washington. Green Bay and Washington. It's Thursday night, folks. Amazon Prime, yet again, bringing us the classics.
Buccs McGee, we've got to seem to have be on a bad streak here for these halftime shows.
I guess people feel if you play during the week, you just ain't got to do nothing. I don't know.
This is almost like a throwback to when short weeks were a thing and teams struggled with only like 2 days to practice and travel.
Well, it is what it is, I guess. So I don't know. I don't know. It's a question of whether Washington is this bad or is just, Green Bay having an off night. They're putting up points, but, it's Washington is horrible tonight.
Is the sophomore slump real here with Jayden Daniels? Because they beat the Giants, but it wasn't by as wide a margin as it probably should have been, considering the current state of the New York Football Giants.
Might have been just a situation where last year, they were able to ride a wave of luck, because there was some luck involved last year. Let's be honest, and maybe now it's a situation where teams have kind of figured it out. Second year, like you said, and now it's. Gotta give Green Bay credit. They have improved with Micah Parsons and all, but you thought Washington would be able to put up a little more of a fight than they have.
Yeah, and then with the Packers, this is now they won last week, a little bit of a surprising win over the Lions, but here they are here, and you figure, okay, these teams are fairly comparable with each other, and I mean they're Jordan Love. He seems kind of having a typical Jordan Love type of game. It just seems to be enough to have a double-figure lead.
He's hitting some throws, missing some throws, but with that defense playing as well as it is, he can, afford to do that. It's just this defense has been able to hold Washington, but I figured Washington would be able to move the ball a little better. I don't know. They've got to be able to come out and score right off the bat. Once they get the ball back, they're starting the third quarter, so they've got to put up some points. Threes aren't going to do it.
Yeah, and I'm surprised. I don't want to say I'm surprised because their defense has a lot of talent, and then you throw Parsons into the mix. But I'm like a little not as wasn't as expecting their defense to be to be this good.
The defense is solid, and Parsons is one of those guys where you literally have to plan for him every snap, 2 to 3 guys, double, triple team. But at the same time, it's like this Washington offense just isn't clicking right now. The run game is pretty much non-existent, and it just seems like they're drawing plays in the sand. There's no consistency. So they're going to have to come up with a game plan to slow it down, drag the clock, eat as much clock as possible, and hopefully, pull out some scores and keep the Green Bay offense off the field.
Would you go as far as to say, maybe fool's gold for Packers fans, like pump the brakes because they've been playing opponents that are adjusting to things and maybe struggling more than they should be, or is it really they're really this good?
Well, it's one of those things where you got a new toy, and of course the things are going well. So of course everybody's high on the Packers. Week 7, week 8, let's see where they're at and go from there. But right now, it's early in the season, week 2. If your team's 2-0, 1-0, and you've got these aspirations for Super Bowl, and you're kind of looking the part, you ride the wave.
Yeah. As we move into preview mode for the weekend. Since there's not too much going on in this Thursday game to speak of. I noticed there's a trend amongst week 2 here. Obviously, it's only the second game of the season. Half the teams had to lose, so we'll look at the teams that most need a win in week 2 to avoid the 0-2 hole and a rough start. The first one of which is a little bit stretching the definition of that rebound because the Bengals did win, but they barely got out of the dog pound. And as we spoke about last week, Joe Burrow and JaMarr Chase were not their usual explosive selves. So how much do the Bengals need to hang a crooked number up on the Jaguars, who did win, but it was against the Panthers.
I don't know if it's got to be a crooked number. I just think they've got to put up more than 17 points. You paid all this offense this ton of money, so you got to put up some points. You got to be putting up something close to 30. So I think it's just a situation of getting the offense in gear. But I think it's more important they still need to win. Like, it's great you won your first game, but if they blow the next 3 out of 4, then you're no better than you were last year. So I think right now it's just win. As the season goes on, the offense I think will start to do its thing. But I think more importantly, you just got to win.
How long a leash do you give the Bengals as far as your interpretations of their Super Bowl aspirations if they have the same type of game as last week where they win, but they struggle, they barely get out of there? Okay, they're 2-0, but you don't look very good doing it.
I think people will still give them a benefit of a doubt because when's the last time they started 2-0? They'll get the benefit of the doubt. People will whisper and say, hey, this offense isn't doing what it's supposed to, but they're 2-0, so you got to give them some credit.
Yeah. A check in the left-hand column is still a check in the left-hand column.
That's what it is, and especially for them.
Yeah. So, I mean, is there anything that makes you think that they won't do that, because obviously we're not very high on the Jags, and I hate them with a passion.
I think it's just that I think they'll do it. I think they'll play a lot better offensively. First game of the season. Let's be honest. We've always talked about this. Shortened preseason. Some guys play, some guys don't. I think it's just one of those things where they've just got to get into a rhythm. So I think they'll play well. The Jags are interesting. Their offense last week wasn't anything that, we saw from them in years past. So it's going to be interesting how this offense develops. But if it becomes a shootout situation, I don't think the Jags can hang with them.
Another team, a team that really needs a rebound in the traditional sense. They got their teeth kicked in a little bit against the Packers, and that's the Detroit Lions. Now, we could chalk this up just to they're going to take a few games to get used to a new offensive coordinator and a new defensive coordinator for that matter, but especially with the offense, with the rhythm that those guys need to be in, Goff and St. Brown and the Sonic and Knuckles duo and Jameson and all them. So how much do the Lions need a win given the fact that the Lions are very much in a little bit of that Buffalo Bills light, Baltimore Ravens light of this is the year to win a Super Bowl?
It was beyond getting your teeth kicked. They got their tails waxed. Like they're just it was bad. They have, especially with this division, they have to win. Like they can't go on like a 3 or 4 game skid. The way this division is built and the way these minus Chicago, because Chicago just fell apart last week. They've got to win. They've got to turn it around, and they got to turn it around quick. You can't use the excuse of, oh, it's a new coordinator. You guys have played with each other. Everyone knows there wasn't a change of quarterback. It's still the same parts as last year. You just got to figure it out, and you got to win.
Yeah, I mean, especially like you said with the division, if JJ McCarthy is ahead of schedule, got off to a rough start, but looked like all the first round buzz that he was worth to close that out with the comeback. And then, of course, the Packers, as we've seen, off to a ridiculously hot start. An 0-2 hole for the Lions would be quite the hole for them to bury themselves out of.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. If the Lions go, 0-2, 1-3, there's going to be the whispers of what's going on. So they're a veteran team. They know what it takes. They've got a veteran coach. They got to put it together.
Does part of you hope that the struggles continue because your matchup with the Lions is only a few weeks away?
No,
you want to play the Lions as the Lions should be to feel like if you can pull off the win, it's a worthy notch in your belt.
Well, of course, we've played them tough. It's not like they've blown us out. It wasn't like we were the Lions and they were Green Bay and whooped us senseless. It's a situation of, hey, if they can't get it together, that's not our fault. We play who's on the schedule. But of course, you want to play the best, and you want them to be the best. But if coming down to that point in the season where they just still haven't gotten it together, no one's going to feel sorry for them.
Yeah. The next game is actually, I guess, technically two teams that need to rebound from a loss, but as we know, as we've discussed in the past, we don't have a lot of expectations for the Miami Dolphins. So I would think this pressure would be squarely on the New England Patriots after a bit of a heartbreaking loss at home to the Raiders. But I mean, I'll leave this up to you. This game's in South Beach. Which of these teams needs to win more? The Patriots to kick off the Vrabel era, or the Dolphins to prove they're not a complete train wreck?
The Dolphins. People's jobs are at stake in Miami. This isn't, New England. No one really has expectations. They're like they're going to get better over time. It's okay. You've got the pieces now. It's just time to develop it and make it happen. No, there were some wackos who thought, oh, maybe this is a playoff team. Okay, let's be realistic here. 7 to 8 wins, I think, is the window for New England. If they pull something else off, then they could be the Washington of this year, and the next thing you know, next year they start to bottom out early. So, you got to be modest with New England, but Miami, not too long ago, everyone was talking, deep playoff run, possibly AFC, champions. No, with what they've got going on, they need to win, because if not, people in the next couple of weeks are going to probably start losing jobs.
The leash is that short, huh?
Oh yeah, it's fact. There's no way around it. Like, let's be real here. Like, they are on the verge of, like, McDaniel losing his job, maybe the GM. Like, there's rumors of Tyreek getting traded. There's, this team by week 7 or 8 could, and if they continue like this, could be drastically different than what we see today.
Yeah, we talked about that a little off air this week, as far as the likelihood of Tyreek getting traded, and you didn't exactly think it was very likely because of the value he still has, and thought, well, so I'm guessing maybe it's better off if they just clean house around Tyreek rather than get rid of him, which would bring in the biggest haul.
But it's also the fact that Tyreek isn't the same Tyreek that was in Kansas City. Yeah, he's still quick and all, but he's not Kansas City Tyreek. So it's one of those things where if Miami's going to do anything, they're probably going to fire the coach and feel like it's a culture thing and try to bring somebody in, try to, get this offense handled, because this offense is really bad. It could be a situation where they sit there and they're like, you know what, maybe the Tua signing wasn't the greatest thing, and try to unload him. But, if you're looking at what pieces you have that are desirable and that bring you value, Waddle and Reek are those guys.
Do you think it's a move? It has to be a 2-for-1 move. If McDaniel's done, they have to find a way to get rid of Tua, or would a new regime still kind of take a chance with Tua?
It all depends what the quarterback market's like. If there's nothing out there, then you got to stick with what you've got. But if there's a free agent coming up, or they feel the draft is strong enough where they can make a move to get in position to draft somebody, they may go that route.
Do you think it'll be a situation where Miami can stave off these rumors, or is New England in better position to rebound and get their season back on track?
I think New England's more stable than what Miami is. So if New England can, kind of get it together and play smart, there's no doubt if Miami plays anything like they did last week, New England can steal the win.
Yeah. A team that's in need of a rebound win, if nothing else, just for a sense of mental calm after their collapse on Sunday night. The Ravens made every mental bonehead move in the book to blow that one to the Bills. And now they come back home for their home opener, and they are facing the Browns, who, despite that spirited effort we spoke of against the Bengals, they're obviously still the Browns. So is this just going to be all right, lick your chops and fire all cylinders and put up a crooked number here?
Cleveland's defense is good. Like, it's not like their defense is subpar and, the Ravens are going to put 40 on them. I think it's going to be a closer game than people think. I think the Ravens can win, but I don't think it's going to be a blowout. Their defense is solid. Their secondary is good. Myles Garrett, like these guys can play. So it's just going to be whether the Ravens go in with the right mindset of, okay, we need to get this done, no messing around. Or if they go in and they're not in it, who knows? Maybe Flacco has one of those days, and next thing you know, they're the ones who win 17-16.
And I believe the Cleveland pulled an upset on Baltimore last year as well, so it's not like they're unfamiliar to beating them. It's not like they're unfamiliar to the team being division rivals and whatnot.
Yeah, exactly. Cleveland's defense is solid. It's just the offense that you just don't know what you're going to get. And that all starts in the quarterback position. But if they can come up with a plan and can keep, the Ravens offense at bay, they've got a shot to win this.
And we're not a gambling show, but sometimes we dance on the degenerate side. And like you said, you think it'll be close. I did think an 11.5-point spread is a bit of a trap there, given the way Cleveland's defense did win. And, if Baltimore's got issues with closing out games they should win.
Yeah, I think 11's a little much, but, if you had told me it was like 8, 9, so between 7 and 9, okay, I'll entertain you. 11, the way Cleveland's defense is, I think it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, week 2 in the NFL is not like week 2 in college, where Bama and Clemson have less than fulfilling games and they blow out a cupcake the next time out.
Yeah, they're not playing Sacred Heart University, Go Pioneers.
Go Pioneers.
Much love.
So let's say Ravens win, but it's closer than it should be. That's what you're going with?
I think it'll be that way now. If it ends up being a blowout, I think it'll be a situation where they were able to hang for 3 quarters and then, maybe, Flacco throws a pick or something and kind of extends it. But I don't know if it's going to be something where we're looking at halftime going, okay, what else is on TV? I don't know if it's there yet.
Oh, the old backdoor cover.
It's not a weeknight game.
No. No fourth quarter 21-point comeback.
Yeah, JJ McCarthy's not playing there.
Yeah. So a team that definitely needs a rebound win, and this one, I doubt this is going to be significantly more difficult to attain, is the defending AFC champions, the Kansas City Chiefs, and it's a Super Bowl rematch against the Eagles. It's at home, but I feel like that is the only positive spot for the Chiefs on paper here.
I don't think it matters where this game is played. I'll be honest. Like, that's great. Have someone come out from Chiefs Glorious. Maybe they'll get Blaine Gabbert to come out and beat that drum or whatever. Super Bowl champion Blaine Gabbert. But they have to win this game. Like this, I don't care what anybody says. This is a must-win game. You start your season 0-2. Your odds of playoffs, let alone the Super Bowl, are pretty much a nil situation. And right now, the way it's early, but the way your division is shaping up, it's going to be a dogfight. So you're going to have to toughen up. Because Philly's coming in there to bully you. Philly's going to come in there and expecting to smack you around like they did. Exactly. Jalen Carter's going to be angry because he's going to want to prove to his team that it was his fault. He's got to make up for last week. They're coming in. They're going to be coming in hot. So we're going to find out what they're made of.
And must win for the Chiefs in spite of the fact that, we just talked about Baltimore off to a shaky start. Buffalo's defense was not itself for 3.5 quarters. So even with the AFC competition not being as dominant as we thought maybe they'd get off to, it's still that much of a must-win for Kansas City.
Exactly, because if Buffalo wins and the Chiefs lose right off the bat, you're 0-2. You're down. You've got to figure this off. You've got to figure it out. And if they end up really struggling these first 5-6 games, come trade deadline, are they going to mortgage the house on a playoff run? Let's not even say Super Bowl, on a playoff run.
Yeah.
Because they're going to have to overpay, because teams are going to sit there saying, okay, you guys are desperate, because let's be realistic. Wide receiver is going to be the glaring issue. Worthy, I think, practice today, but let's be real. No one is scared of those wide receivers. No one is.
And if they wanted to give Reek his homecoming, they would probably have to give up a small fortune to get him, which is probably not the best idea for a receiver on the wrong side of 30.
Exactly. Like, if I'm Miami, I'm like, all right, you throwing me a first rounder, a couple twos. If you're not sniffing that, then I guess he's staying. Because at that point, Miami's like, well, we'll keep him. It's not like he's damaged. It's not like he's horrible. It's just we think we need a change in culture. So the Chiefs will probably try to grab someone off the scrap heap, try to refurbish them and try to make a run. But they go down 0-2. The little whispers, are going to be loud, and the hardcore Chiefs, fans are going to have to say, Nick Wright's going to have to sit there and say, hey, wait a minute now. He's going to have to look himself in the mirror, combing his locks, and he's going to have to sit there and say, okay, maybe there's trouble, but hey, who am I to say?
Based on what we saw last week, with how the Cowboys were able to have some success against the Eagles secondary, do you foresee any issues there with the Chiefs, or is their receiving core just so leaving a lot to be desired that whatever deficiencies the Philadelphia defense has won't be nearly as glaring?
Exactly. Like, the wide receiver core for the Chiefs, okay, there's speed. That's great and all. But are they really great route runners? Like, are these guys who can find themselves into space and, like, do great things? Not really. Basically, their success feeds off of Travis's success. Let's be honest. Travis sets the offense. Now, if teams get him sandwiched and handled, I'm sorry, Hollywood Brown isn't catching 7 balls for 150 yards and 3 touchdowns. Like, it's not happening. So they're gonna have to hang their hat on the run game, and they're gonna have to grind out, scoring drives. Philly's not gonna let you do that. Philly's gonna say, okay, we're gonna pin our ears back, and even though they lost some guys, this team is still talented in the front. And I think their cornerbacks are going to be up for the challenge. They're not fearing Mahomes. And I give, Patrick, he played decent last week, but you kind of saw some things where you're like, this isn't the Patrick of the past. And I think time's kind of caught up to the Chiefs.
Does that feel weird for you to say that Patrick is not to be feared anymore?
No, because I knew at some point it was going to happen. Everyone, was like, oh, he's going to go on like a 9-year run, Super Bowls every year. It's automatic, blah, blah, blah. And I said, there's going to be a point where this team is not going to be that dominant. And things happen. Things happen in the dynasty. It happens, you don't have Rice. You've got how many more weeks before you get Rice back? You got Worthy and Kelsey running into each other. How the hell does that happen in an Andy Reid offense? And the defense is good, but no one fears. I don't think teams fear the Chiefs anymore. Your fear is that somebody doesn't do their job on the defense and Mahomes is able to figure it out and scramble and exploit it. If your team is a solid defense and they're doing their job, it makes it that much harder for Mahomes. This team, but last week wasn't good, and I don't know if they pull it out against the Eagles. It'll be impressive, but I doubt this happens.
From a to expand upon that, from a general standpoint, when you say if your defense does their job and keep them under control, but is it also on the other side too? Like if the offense can do their job and build a pretty steady lead against Kansas City, does that also add to not having fear against the Chiefs, where it's like we don't have to worry about this team coming back because of the state they're in. It doesn't matter how much magic Mahomes has had in the past. A big enough lead, this team's not doing it because of their current status.
Yeah, look what the Chargers did. The Chargers, the way they played, they didn't fear the Chiefs at all. They handled their offense. Now, if you were going to tell me that Herbie was going to play as well as he did against their defense, I would have been like, I don't know about that. It's just the record. They've been close, but never have been able to finish it off. And they definitely were able to finish the game. Mahomes looked uncomfortable. They're not the same Chiefs. I'm sorry, that aura isn't there, and I think teams sense that. So now we're just going to do what we need to do. Yeah, you respect it. When they walk into your house, you have to respect the resume. There's no doubt about it. But you're not going to sit there going, oh man, there's going to be one of those drives. Oh man, because I think teams feel they can handle it.
It's amazing to me that Hollywood Brown keeps getting jobs in the NFL. It didn't work in Baltimore. It didn't work in Arizona. It's not working in Kansas City.
You know what? The guys had some injury issues, and I get it, but they need more than that. And they brought in, Hopkins last year thinking he was going to be the guy. He wasn't going to be. Come on. Like I don't want to say past his prime, but he's totally situational now. And you saw that last week in the Ravens game.
Oh, that amazing ODB style catch.
Yeah. Red zone type catch, and then after that, what happened? Did you hear from him again?
Nope.
So the Chiefs have work to do, and if they can't, they need to figure it out quick. Because if not, if they're on week 7, week 8, and they're sitting in 3rd or 4th place in that division, it's not happening.
Yeah. Another team that needs a rebound is going up against your Bucks on Monday night. The Houston Texans. It was a tight one, but they could not overcome the Rams. And that I think that might even say a little bit that they couldn't overcome the Rams when the Rams weren't necessarily a high-flying offense in their own right. How much do the Texans need a win here, especially with my Colts playing a little well in front of them at the moment?
They've got to get that offense going. Their defense is solid, but that offense has got to figure it out. They're another team that, they've got talent, but, that division is looking like it's going to be highly competitive. So you got to get the wins while you can.
AFC South, highly competitive for all the wrong reasons.
At least through week 2, highly competitive. Yeah. Let's take it a week at a time. Week 2.
Yeah, nobody had the Jags and Colts at 1-0, and the Texans in last.
AFC MVP Daniel Jones. No one would have said that.
Yes. What do you think now, Houston? Houston, and despite how CJ Stroud is, a quality prospect, despite a sophomore season that didn't have quite the pizzazz of his rookie campaign. How do you think he matches up against Tampa's defense?
If he plays like he did last year, he could be in for some trouble. The secondary is a lot better in Tampa. They're young, but they are better. They're a lot more ball hawk, especially with the young guys that they've picked up. They were able to get a lot of they were able to get solid rush, this past weekend on Penix. So it's going to be, they're going to have to keep Stroud upright. They're going to need their run game. Their run game is going to have to show up. If they can't run the ball, they're in for a long night.
You think CJ Stroud's type of quarterback that needs a run game to complement him? He's not someone that can survive a week here or there in a one-dimensional offense?
No, I don't think so. He's talented. There's no doubt. Some quarterbacks have that one game where, the run game falls apart and you're able to, pull it out. But at the same time, you need all your wide receivers. He's, his wide receivers are still kind of banged up. So it's a situation of who's going to show up. I think you're going to see a lot of stuff to the tight end. They're going to try to really incorporate that. But the run game has to be there. Because if not, Tampa will go on long drives and tire that defense out.
What's a more challenging matchup for your Tampa Bay defense? Is it a running quarterback like Penix or more of a traditional drop back quarterback like CJ Stroud?
I'd say a drop back a bit because I think we can pursue well, and I think we've improved that with like the signing of Hassan Reddick and such. Um, Drop back, and quarterbacks like that have always kind of been an Achilles heel because they just when we haven't been able to get a rush on them, they've been able to sit there. As with most quarterbacks, if you can sit there in the pocket, you can pick any defense apart. But I think this year, the pass rush is a lot better, so if they force Stroud to move around a bit, I think there's gonna be some opportunities for takeaways.
And touching on one of our favorite teams to bat around, the Dallas Cowboys. Spirited effort despite a case of the Butterfingers on a few occasions. How much do they need a win going up against a longtime rival, the New York Football Giants?
Oh, they need this because if Washington loses tonight, and let's see, the Eagles, I'm confident they're going to win on Sunday. So at that point, Dallas is sitting in the second spot, and the way the NFC is, man, might be wild card material. I don't, you really got to look at things. So Dallas has got to keep pace. So I think a win is definitely important, especially after the whole Michael Parsons fiasco. You want to give your team and your fans something to cheer for. So, and it's the Giants. If you can't beat the Giants, then I don't know what there's like. I give the Giants credit. Their pass rush is solid. They've got a good pass rush, and that's like the best part of that team, because Russell Wilson was absolutely horrible last week. So if you're telling me Russell Wilson turns it around and throws 3 touchdowns, throws for like 320, and they end up blowing you out, then there's problems in Dallas.
Yeah, I mean, and Dallas defense did not look great against the Eagles. I think the bright spots they had were just the fact that the Eagles kind of fell into old habits and didn't throw a whole lot. But for what the Eagles did do, even in their old habits, they still exposed the Cowboys a little bit.
Yeah, and I think Deron Bland is actually out this game. I think he's got an injury, so I think he's going to be out. It's not like the Giants are going to start throwing the ball over the yard. Neighbors, I think, will have his yards and such, but Dallas, with the talent that's on this team, should be able to outscore the Giants and win this game. Really, if not, then there's a problem.
So you don't think it'll be a repeat of Week 1 where Washington was kind of held a little more in check than they probably figured they would be? You think Dallas, if they do everything they need to do, they'll run away with this?
I think so. I think the offensive line for the Cowboys is a little better than Washington's. I think Dak should be able to put up some points on this team. But for all I know, like I said, Russell Wilson catches, some, Seattle vibes and, pulls out, a 27-10 win, and Dallas just falls apart. But no, I think Dallas has enough where they should be able to put some points up, and it should be a good game for them.
I think I know what your answer is going to be, but let's say only one of all these teams actually wins. So the Bengals, the Lions, Miami, Baltimore, the Chiefs, Houston, or Dallas. Which one needs it the most out of all these teams that need a win? Well, I guess I probably shouldn't even include the Bengals because technically.
Absolutely need it the most.
Yeah.
Oh wow! But by a hair, I'll say the Ravens.
Oh.
I would say by a hair, I think the Ravens need to win just because if they were everyone's pick, to basically to make it to the AFC Championship game. At this point, with that roster and all that talent, they've got to win. Now, my number 2 team just behind them are the Chiefs.
So you surprised me. I thought for sure you were going with the Chiefs needing it the most.
Well, it's because I think a lot of people feel that it's the Ravens year. Like this is it. You know, you give the like I said, you give the dynasty its due, but the Ravens need this win. If they fall farther back and Buffalo can stay above water, and win these games come week 13, 14 when you're really looking at the playoffs, it might be something that's out of reach. Could be they could be sitting there saying, okay, we might win our division. Who knows? Who knows what Pittsburgh's going to do?
Other games that don't necessarily have the same theme, but worth talking about. One is the Battle of the Horsies. My Colts hosting the Denver Broncos. Which one of these is more true and more likely to repeat? Denver struggling the way they did against the Titans, or my Colts looking like they're world beaters and thrashing the Dolphins around like they did, and Danny Dimes looking like the second coming of number 18.
I don't know, man. I kind of want to say that the Broncos will kind of right the ship. I don't think Peyton's gonna let them, really, fall off that much. I think, they hit a bump. First game of the season hit a bump, but I think the Broncos bounce back.
I feel like Michael Pittman had kind of a resurgence in that Miami game, which I kind of expected that to happen with Daniel Jones being able to show off his arm a little bit more with a downfield target. But I also feel like that might have an inverse effect in this because he's going against PS2.
Well, when
At
you're
least
going against
presumably so.
when you're going against probably one of the best corners in the league, that's what it's going to be. I think, and that Broncos defense has a lot of studs throughout that defense, front seven all the way to the back. So it's going to be a situation where, I think the defense kind of was embarrassed last week. They're going to come ready, and I think Bo Nix will get things settled, and I think they're going to have a solid game.
Think it'll be a low scoring game?
I can see mid-20s.
Oh, okay.
It's not like the Broncos are devoid of offensive talent. I think they'll put some points up for sure.
The Sunday nighter this week features those Vikings fresh off their heroics on Monday night. It feels surprising to me that the Vikings had two primetime games to start the season off. Um, and they play host to the Falcons. Obviously, looking to lick their wounds off that Buccaneers loss. So, and then Michael Penix, like we talked about last week, uh, was pretty impressive in the loss. So, what do you expect to continue here? Michael Penix's success or JJ McCarthy's success?
I'm going to say JJ McCarthy. The way they bounced back that second half, I think it's going to show that they've got that ability to take a team's best shot and figure it out. Drake London's beat up, so they say he's going to be good to go on Sunday, but he's the guy on the offense that makes it all really go in the pass game. Unless you're really going to put Bijan out there catching 10 or 12 passes, which I don't think is going to happen. I think what the Vikings defense is going to do is they're going to force Penix to throw. Penix can gun it, but he'll also overthrow. He'll also miss some reads, and I think the Vikings are a good enough defense where they can make you pay on that. So, I think the Vikings will pull this out, and I think you'll continue to see the rise of JJ McCarthy.
Is discipline a problem for Michael Penix?
I think it is. Like I said, the guy's got a cannon arm, but there's some throws that he just doesn't make, and he's got to learn them. He's got to learn to be able to, scan. When he's sitting there in the pocket, there's some throws that just have to be made, and for some reason, it doesn't seem like he can make them. He'll have an incredible toss 1 minute, and then there'll be a guy who will run a nice, easy route, and he just either doesn't look that way or just overthrows it.
And you mentioned the quality of the Vikings defense. It also doesn't hurt that the Falcons defense is not nearly in the same category, and that could open up several opportunities for JJ downfield.
Yeah, they drafted two guys in the first round that were supposed to be pass rushing phenoms, and they were pretty much non-existent week one. So those guys are going to have to show up this week. They're really going to have to do something, because what happens is if you don't get a pass rush, your secondary falls apart. It doesn't matter how great you are, it falls apart.
Yeah, the Vikings could, if they can get out of the gates 2-0, and I'm not sure off the top of my head who they play in week 3, but if they can get off to a really fast start, and then they get Jordan Addison back after his suspension, JJ gets some confidence going. This could be a dangerous team, especially as we spoke about earlier with the Lions off to a slow start.
Yeah, like right now, teams in these divisions are seeing, the perennials really struggle, and they've got to take advantage of it, because if you can do that, next thing you know, you could be, 2 or 3 games ahead of them come the stretch run, and at that point, if they can't bounce back, you could be walking your way into the playoffs.
Yes. An unexpected early tilt for Battle of Control in the AFC West. We have a doubleheader on Monday night, the first doubleheader this season on Monday night between the LA Chargers and the Raiders. And of the victor go the spoils, 2-0. And if we expect the Chiefs to drop this one to the Eagles, that could be a very surprising 2-0 atop the AFC West.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where the Raiders are starting to play well. They're like I said, it's a new culture. They're starting to build things up, and the Chargers are riding high from beating the Chiefs. We said it's one of those things where if the Chiefs start to falter, there are decent teams in this division that could take the mantle, and I think the Chargers are that team.
Do you think it'll be a early broken glass flipper for the Raiders here, or can they continue this surprise start and upend the Chargers? Because we did see the Chargers have some consistency issues before they got their wheels under them in Brazil.
Even if the Raiders lose this game, they're going to be all right. Like no one's expecting them to be 12-5. It's a rebuild. Let's just be honest. It's a rebuild. You've got solid pieces in there, but no one's expecting them 12, 13 games. So I think what'll happen is, they could gut something out and pull off the upset, but I think by week 8, week 9, you'll see, what the fruits of this culture change are going to be, and they're going to be better off for it. So it's week 2. There's no real expectations. As long as they play a solid game, I think that's what Raider Nation's looking for.
Slight programming note, Sunday Scaries faithful. Due to some travel concerns, we will be live Tuesday, which means we'll have the full breakdown of everything Sunday as well as the Monday night doubleheader. Buccs McGee, sir, take us off air with your final thoughts as we get the kickball kicked off in week 2.
Yeah, well, Washington is doing old school Washington things, and give Green Bay the credit. They're doing their thing. So should be an interesting week coming up. If your team hasn't won yet, good luck. Chiefs fans, I'd be highly concerned. Your season could be hanging in the balance by week 2. No one thought we'd be saying that. But hey, you never know.